Before we get out of here, I wanted to talk a little bit about the press conference. Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson, they did a dual press conference, sort of just talking about the offseason and some of the things that had happened, and just held it in front of Brooklyn Nets press row. We both caught up. I think you watched more of the interview than I did. I caught snippets and highlights of it more than anything else. But did you have any big takeaways from? It was mostly Marks, I think, that had none of the bombshells. There's really no bomb. Although there were some interesting pieces that kind of made me scratch my head. My head doesn't scratch itself. But did you have any takeaways from some of the stuff that Marks kind of laid out about what had happened during the offseason?
Yeah, sorry, I got lost picturing what's scratching your head if not you. But so I mean. And we did talk about this a little bit. The quote that I just think I like it from an organization standpoint coming from Sean Marks was just we stand true to who we've been for 3 years, competing and playing hard, unselfish basketball. Now, obviously, that's a very generic statement, but he said that guys want to play in this system. Guys, it's an attractive destination for players like Kyrie and like KD, and I think that was a big selling point for them. I did find interesting that, and we talked about this last podcast, KD announces it on social media that he's signing with Brooklyn. Now, you might think that that's for you and me and fans to find out about, but apparently that's also the way...
And that's what we talked about. Right.
Yeah, apparently that's also the way Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson and the Brooklyn Nets found out that KD was coming to them. So, a little bit of, we're curious, KD, like, are you considering the Brooklyn Nets? Didn't you check my Instagram? I told you guys 2 hours ago I'm signing with you. So that was interesting. Maybe it's just it's the new wave of where we are with social media.
Well, it's interesting that you use the word interesting, because the word I want to use is absolute disaster. Like this is so weird that, and maybe I'm just old. Like, maybe I'm just too old to get it. And I'm again in the old, no pun intended, in the line of what I was talking about before, willing to just be wrong about things. I'm fine being wrong about this too. I kind of hope that I am. Don't you find that so weird? I don't even really know how to. Like, I wanted KD really bad, but there's some warning signs that, like, this guy just might be kind of crazy, like that, right? Well, or you're a little younger than me. I mean, we're both kind of old. I think we're both older than Kevin Durant's side, so forget that part of it. But don't you find this so odd? Like, I really, that was like alarm bell time for me. This is so weird.
Well, and there's something like so, and overall too, like the way that Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson, the way they talked about the process was like, it seemed like a very casual, passive kind of thing. Like, it almost felt like very early on, Kyrie had made his choice. He was going to go to the Nets. So the Nets were like, great, like, we've locked him in. Now, at that point, I thought that, like, behind the scenes, the Nets were doing a lot of legwork, trying to work KD, pitch him, have him come, and not that you want him to be groveling at someone's feet, but just, hey, come in, see the facility, get to know us, whatever. And it more seemed like, my impression was the Nets were like, so we just kind of sat back, and then KD said he was signing with us, and we thought, okay, that works for me.
Well, it's like the greatest sign ever that they didn't, because everyone's like, oh, there's tampering. There's widespread tampering that's going on with these free agents, and there is all this whining and dining behind the scenes that you never know about, or these meetings with agents that you'll never be able to monitor all this stuff. But, like, I don't know, so maybe it's signaling, we didn't tamper, but I almost wish they had tampered. That would make more sense to me.
Well, now, okay, I'll also put it in this context too now. Kawhi Leonard, so much of what they were talking about when he was making his decision, where is he going to go, whatever, is that he was doing things behind the scenes, talking with players, whatever. You heard a little bit come out that he reached out to KD, then he reached out to Paul George. But specifically, they said like that a lot of that was Kawhi Leonard's expectation of like, I don't want this stuff getting out from any of the organizations, whether it was Toronto, the Clippers, the Lakers, whoever. He wanted to know that he had the trust of the organization that he was going to sign with, that they were going to let him do what he wanted to do and let him announce it on his terms, his timeline, right? So from that standpoint, maybe there's just a bit of that. Now, do I objectively, like you said, I think we're probably a couple of the older guys in the room where I'm like, man, I just like I'm a handshake guy, right? Like meet me at the office, we'll shake on it, sign on the dotted line, and I want to congratulate you for joining the team. It seems like maybe, and we already know that Kyrie is his own cat as well, so maybe that's what it is. Maybe they just have these two unique kind of personalities, and KD was like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm recovering from my surgery. I'm just going to put out something casual. It's not a big deal. This is why we came to Brooklyn instead of maybe to the Knicks, because we didn't want the fanfare, and an organization that said, like, fine, we don't need to. You guys don't, you want it to be low-key? It's low-key. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to force you. We're not going to Jim Dolan you out in front of the media, throw your jersey on and be like, championships or bust, everybody, because I don't think that that's what these two particular personalities want to have. So then, the Nets are saying,
yeah, I mean, I tell you, if that's their case, then these guys are so meta that I'm so confident now because so now I'm going the other way because now I'm like, if you're so confident with your internal processes that you can just like take the quasi laid back approach to a guy and think that it's like laying back in the boat and just like waiting for the line to catch the fish because the stiller you stand, or like the more still the line is, the more fish are going to come or something like that. Like if that's the case, then maybe I'm even more confident in the organization now. I guess I just read it as God.
No. I'm getting really confident in this podcast because I'm reversing you like it literally midstream. I am throwing you back the other direction on some of this stuff. So I'm excited about it. But I think it's easy to say they did a lot of good for themselves last year, making the playoffs and having a nice run. I think there's legitimacy to the fact that around the league, it's the same why they said like. Nobody, for the most part, nobody thought that Kyrie and KD would have ended up in Brooklyn together. Everyone assumed the Knicks, everyone somewhere else, whatever the case was going to be. And maybe they really have. Like we've talked about this. I love what they've done as an organization over the last 3 years, and I actually think that it really does speak volumes around the league. And I think that players genuinely are like, yeah, I love what they're doing in Brooklyn. Why wouldn't I want to go be a part of that? So like you said, it's so meta. It's not meta.
Maybe you can just get a reputation at some point that's widespread enough to say, I don't need to go visit these guys, right? Like maybe, you can think about under other industries. If you were going to go job seeking, you might say, and you kind of had your pick of jobs. I mean, I don't need to visit the Facebook campus to know if I want to go there. That place is awesome, right? Like I just okay, I don't need the tour. I'm just good. I'll just show up on day one and just kind of get my job, or go to ESPN, and I just don't need to like tour Bristol to know if I want to work at ESPN. I think maybe you can just get to a point reputation wise where, and it probably helps that these guys are a little aloof, which Durant and Kyrie definitely seem like they are. So that probably helps also. But maybe you can just get to a point in that kind of thing where you say, these guys just don't need to because they talk to other people in the league and they're boys and they all say, look, you got to come here. This place is great, right? And like these guys are all friends and the agents kind of steer them in the right directions and whatever it is, or they just know it's going to be good for their brand. So
yeah.
And by the way, the part where you say you're gonna, I don't want people to get worried. I'm a man of a passion and conviction. So I think that there's going to be plenty of times where I'm going to pick my hill and then just die on it, but. I just don't have 1,000 hills to die on. Yeah, I could be swayed with data.
Yeah, I'm just checking off the, I like to notate in my personal log. It's a little bit of like a dear journal. I caught Doug today. I laid that line in the water, and turns out I caught the Doug. But what I will piggyback on though, like you said, to your overall idea of the organization reputation spreading, I do think that also going into the free agency period, that I don't think that the Nets were necessarily going into this free agency period expecting to, or looking at their number one being like, we're going to get Kyrie and KD. That's the plan. I could have painted you a vision where, let's say Kyrie signed back with Boston because everything was fine there. The Nets probably would have re-signed D'Angelo Russell to a 4-year contract where he's still young. You can hold on to him for a year or two and then trade him away at some point for more assets or other players or whatever it is. And you could have continued to push this process along. And next year look to be, hey, we get a couple more wins. We get back in the playoffs again. So I also think that the organization does believe in the steady as she goes approach. So I don't know if they weren't necessarily desperate in this market, right? It wasn't, again, it's not to kick the Knicks, but it wasn't Jim Dolan. Sean Marks didn't go on a radio station and say, we've got hard facts that we're going to be picking up 2 big name free agents this offseason. Mark it down. There weren't any bold statements. It was, yeah, we're going to see what happens. And when our reputation appeals to certain players, and you got a guy who's, from New Jersey and Kyrie, and he kind of just comes out and expresses his interest in joining the organization, you say, okay, does that mean we can take a look at KD now? Great. And if not, we were going to have this cap room. We were going to, trust the model that we've been building on. And then it was just like, oh, did you catch the post? It looks like we got KD as well, and then you move forward with it from there. So I will also acknowledge that I am taking the I'm taking the trust and positive approach with the organization. I don't think that this is that Sean Marks is a flailer, So from that standpoint, I assume that it all adds up. And like you said, catch me 2 months into the season where I have some type of panic if they go on a 3-game losing streak.
Well, Jim Dolan was half right because I told you that they got Julius Randle, so
right.
he got halfway there on that statement because, like I said, I'm fully on with the Julius Randle thing going here forward. This guy's, I'm not going to call him a top 5 player yet, but easily top 6.5 or something, just based on how much I love that guy now. All right. I think we're going to get out of here. The next podcast, we're hoping the next one we record is going to be a live one with Adam and I in the same room together, and we'll do a couple of those over the summer. We may space out the podcast a little bit more over the course of this summer because, like I said, NBA news doesn't come at you fast and furious like it did during this free agent period. This is we do go through a downtime during the summer of just general basketball stuff, and then we ramp back up when it comes to the fall as we get ready for the season and where we're starting to look at starting lineups and things like that. So we've been going once a week so far. We may end up spacing them out just a little bit more over the course of the summer. We're talking some more stuff besides just basketball, some just general life stuff. So anyone can feel free to pick my brain as much as possible. Adam, I'm not going to speak for him. I don't know if you want to pick his brain. Just not sure what you're going to find in there. But for me, ask me any questions you want about. It's like rattling around, like being inside an empty arena. All right, We Got Nets podcast is the podcast you're listening to. The way you can help us out right now, you go over to iTunes, you go over to Stitcher, you go over to Spotify, wherever you listen to this, you rate and review the podcast. 5 stars or don't bother, like we always say. You go to YouTube, subscribe over there, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'll have all the links in the shows. I know that's a lot of asks. I'm not asking you to do all of those things. Just choose one, and they really, really help a lot. We had a bunch of new YouTube subscribers this week. We've got some new ratings and reviews up on the podcast over at iTunes. All that stuff. We notice all that stuff. We really, really appreciate it, and it only helps us grow and will help us grow over the course of the season. So we'll have all the links in the podcast notes, but even where you're listening now, just rate and review us. And we really appreciate it. Buddy, are you excited to see me? We're going to see each other at the end of the week. Rate yourself 1 to just over the moon. Can't wait. You're going to hug me so much because it's been a while since we've seen each other.
Well, listen, I've already drenched myself several times on this podcast, so I feel like I need to bring it back off the edge a little bit there. But no, I'm really excited. So, the little peer behind the curtain of you and I is that your wife, Sabrina, is my girlfriend's sister, Courtney. So that's how we ended up connecting on this, and a bromance ensued. But it's going to be great. We're going to be spending some time. This will sound great to our listeners out in the woods, on the river, no one around but us and a couple of microphones. So you're going to get some good content when we get face to face. I don't know how much hugging, touching, whatever may occur, but I know we're going to have a good time.
There will be some drinking involved, I'm sure. But before then, remember, rate and review us, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. Go and subscribe on whatever social media you use. Really appreciate it. We'll be back again next week talking more Nets. Buddy, enjoy it. See you at the end of the week.
Yes, sir.